Hi, my name is Marlene Einhillig. My site location for our Unit 3 observation was located on Windmill Hill in Dillingham, Alaska. The dates of my observation ran from January 26th through January 31st of 2015. The approximate local time of observations was between 4 and 6 p.m. The NWS data location closest to my site location was the Dillingham Airfield, which was about 2 miles away from my site location. The ICAO ID is PADL. The first day of my weather observation began on January 26th. The current temperature at 4:49 p.m. was 8.4 degrees Fahrenheit reading on my left digital thermometer and 10.6 degrees Fahrenheit on my right digital thermometer. NWS showed 7 degrees at that time, which was about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit below my reading, but I thought that was pretty close. The minimum for that day was 5.7 and the high for the day was 10.8. The second day of my observation was January 27th. The current temperature at 4:45 p.m. showed 18.4 degrees Fahrenheit on my left digital thermometer and 19.4 degrees Fahrenheit on my right digital thermometer. The NWS showed 19 degrees Fahrenheit, which fell right between my left and right digital thermometer. The low for that day was 17.8 degrees Fahrenheit and the high was 21.4. The third day of my observation was January 28th. The current temperature at 4:50 p.m. was 19.2 degrees Fahrenheit on my left digital thermometer and 19.4 degrees Fahrenheit on my right digital thermometer. The NWS showed 19 degrees at that time, which was just slightly below my left digital thermometer but was pretty close. The low for that day was 14.1 degrees Fahrenheit and the high was 22.3 degrees Fahrenheit. The fourth day of my weather observation was on January 29th and the current temperature at 6 p.m. was 15.4 degrees and my right digital thermometer showed 17.6 degrees Fahrenheit and the NWS showed 16 degrees Fahrenheit at that time, which fell in between my left and right current digital thermometer reading. The low for that day was 10.8 degrees Fahrenheit and the high for the day was 26.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The last day of my observation was on January 23rd, and the current temperature at 5 p.m. was 22.5 degrees, and the right digital thermometer showed 23.3 degrees, and NWS showed 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which was about 3 degrees above my left digital thermometer reading, but I'd say it was pretty close. The minimum for the last day was 22 degrees and the high was 24.5 degrees. As you can see, the temperature went up from the first day, which was at about 7 degrees. It went up to 19 degrees on the second day, and then on the third day it stayed at about 19 degrees, and then it went down 3 degrees on the fourth day, and then on the fifth day it went up to 25 degrees. The barometric pressure on the first day of my observation showed 1005 millibars, and NWS showed 1007 millibars. On my second day of observation, my barometer showed 1007 millibars, and NWS showed 1010 millibars. On the third day of my observation, I showed 1013 millibars, and NWS showed 1015 millibars. On the fourth day of my observation, my barometer showed 1021 millibars, and NWS showed 1025 millibars. And on the last day of my observation, my reading showed 1021 millibars, and NWS showed 1023 millibars. As you can see, the barometric pressure went up from the first day to the fourth day, and then stayed about the same on the last day of the observation. I also noticed that my readings were about 2 points lower than NWS's readings, but I thought that was due to the location difference of the readings. The site of my site location is Dillingham, and Dillingham is located about right here. And today, January 26th, it shows precipitation. On January 26th, I observed snow, and I noticed that Dillingham was between a high pressure and a low pressure. I noticed that Dillingham sat on the west side of the stationary front, which was from the Aleutian Islands up into the Yukon. To southeast Alaska, southeast of Dillingham shows low pressure. Today, my barometric pressure was 1005, which fell between the two pressure points of 988 and 1011. So I'd say my pressure reading was about accurate. On the second day of my observation, January 27th, my barometric pressure read 1007, which falls between the two pressure points that I see on the map, 987 and 1032. So my guess would be that my barometric pressure corresponds to what the map shows. I noticed on the map that there was a high pressure on the northern part of the map and a low front with low pressure shooting north. And I also noticed that there were precipitation spots to the west side of Dillingham. Today I observed about 25% of the sky being covered in clouds, and there was no precipitation. So I believe that my observations correspond to this TV map. On the third day of my observation, January 28th, the barometric pressure at 4:50 p.m. was 1013 millibars, which seems to be correct looking at the TV map. Today I observed about 75% of the sky covered in cloud, and there was no precipitation. But on the map here it shows precipitation, but I I didn't observe any precipitation for today. And there is a front moving northeast, powered by a low moving counterclockwise below the southeast side of the Alaskan Peninsula. And again today, there is a high pressure on the northern side of the map, running from south of Siberia all the way into Canada. Today, January 29th, on my fourth day of observation, my barometric pressure was 1021, and I observed clear skies, which corresponds to the TV map. Today, there's also a cold front that is pushing down south of Siberia into Alaska, and there continues to be a high front in northern Alaska. Today the temperature at 4:50 was at about 19 degrees, which the gray area shows equaling warm. So I believe that the TV map corresponds with my observation for today. On the final day of my observation, January 31st, the barometric pressure at 5 p.m. was 1021, which is kind of difficult to tell, but I believe that it matches up with a TV map. Today the temperature was 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and I observed clear skies, which would also have a clear sky, which would also be the cloud type, and there was no precipitation. And I believe that it matches up with a TV map. Going to the map and GO's images on the first day of my observation, January 26th, it shows precipitation, which I did observe snow on this day. And on the visual, it shows, I would say, like a grayish to a blackish. And I remember on this day it was foggy, and the sky cover was marked as about 75% of the sky being covered. Down here on the bottom left is the thermal imaging map, and in Dillingham it shows a whitish gray, shows more of a whitish gray color. But for the most part of Dillingham, I would say it'd be more on the grayish side. Today's temperature was 7 degrees Fahrenheit, which matches up with the whitish grayish color of that map. And lastly, down here is the water vapor map. In my area, it shows a white to gray color, which matches up with my observation of this day, which